This meeting is.
All right, well, welcome. Do you off mute now? Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, sure. All right, sorry folks online, we still have some people joining us, but we are going to get started. Very excited about our location and our speaker today. And we have Sandy, who directs the North Country Boys and Girls Club with us, as well as Erin Talcott. So I will turn it over to them after we do a quick round of introductions so that Sandy and Erin know who are in the room, and all of you as well, because we actually have a full house here as you can see online for those who are with us on Zoom. So actually we'll start with the Zoom folks. So Chuck, do you want to start, and then just kick it over to whoever's on Zoom, just call their name. We'll do it popcorn style. Chuck? Okay, Jason.
Yeah, Jason Akmoudi with Woodsville Guaranteed Savings Bank.
Awesome. Hey, Jason. And who else do we have? Michael. Miguel, I apologize. Miguel?
Good morning, everyone. Miguel Morales from the Small Business Administration.
Awesome. And I think is Chuck back? All right, we'll head back to him. All right, so moving into the room, this is great to have so many people, more people in the room than are on Zoom. So Chris, we'll start with you, and then we'll just go around the room.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Chris there from the Appalachian Mountain Club, and you'll hear more from me shortly. So.
Hi, everyone. Erin Talcott, Development Associate at the Boys and Girls Club. I have only been at our committee meetings via Zoom, so it's very nice to be with one person.
Hey everyone, Steve Fortier, Administrator of Rural Economic Development for the state of New Hampshire.
Good morning, great to be here in person. Stephanie Wiener, Congresswoman Custer's office.
Hi, Michelle Bowden. I'm the programs director for Grafton Regional.
Hi, I'm Sandy Beck. I'm the executive director of this wonderful Boys and Girls Club country.
I'm Tim Josephson. I'm planner with the Prevailing Leaf Summit Regional Planning Commission.
Morning, Glenn Koppelman with North Country Council.
Peter Motang with the New Hampshire Division of Economic Development.
Ben Amsden with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation.
Angela Cleveland, North Country Council.
Kelly Roy, North Country Council.
Awesome. Well, we are so lucky to have Erin and the North Country Boys and Girls Club and Sandy to be our hosts today. So thank you so much for offering. This is great. I would love for you just to do a quick intro about this space and maybe a little housekeeping, this kind of stuff. And then we can jump into Taylor and Chris's presentation today.
Yeah, Jeff, do you want me to go or you go?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, put you on the spot.
I don't know if anyone needs the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi there, bathroom is right around the corner. If you get lost, just come get one of us and we'll get you there. If you need water, seltzer, anything, just keep us posted. And then I think after we're done with Chris's presentation, we can take a little bit to walk around the club and just share some of the updates of what's happening here.
And if you have urgent bio needs, it's a single stall adult bathroom that she's talking about right in the hallway, but we also have a locker room right inside the club where there's 4 stalls and then 2 more single stalls in the middle where the club kids portion is, but you're welcome to use them. It might be a toddler, so you don't want her to.
Yes.
Awesome. Did you want to tell us a little bit about the facility or about? Sure. And we can do a tour afterwards for folks who look.
Oh yeah, you want to hear now?
Yeah, just maybe just a little intro to this cool space.
Sure. We're coming on about 20 years here. We have some of the almost original founders on the board still. We have a board of 9 and going strong. We did merge with the central branches September 1st last year, which has really got a nice infusion for us of back office support for funding, Some of you may already know that Business Economic Fair, Taylor Caswell was instrumental in getting us $1.9 million coming soon so that we can actually, you'll be the first to see this old space, and then hopefully you can come back and be one of the first to see the new space, because this whole side will be remodeled into infant, toddlers, and preschoolers, opening up 39 more slots, which is so important, as we know, in order to get people back in the workforce and stay in the workforce, so they have childcare. But so the facility is about almost 20 years old. We have 18,000 square feet of probably the best kept secret, right? So I'm glad you guys are here so we can, unfold this secret before you today. But we have 93 children registered in our summer camp program this past summer, 72 in the after school program last year. We're ramping up this year, but right now only 42, actually going up to 44 at the start of the school year, but that builds right back up.
And I don't know, I'm sure you have heard about the struggles in finding childcare with either your colleagues or yourself. I know Michelle and I have talked extensively about our own personal challenges with finding childcare. But there truly is no childcare in the area. Right now, there are only 11 infant spaces available at a licensed childcare facility for all of Upper Grafton. And there are over 350 babies born a year at LRH. So we are just so thankful to receive this funding. We're hoping that renovations are going to start February or March, fingers crossed, and be able to provide this service that people desperately need in the community. So it's very exciting things to come, and just so truly needed to have high quality childcare available so people who want or need to work can be back at work.
Great. So consistent with our economic development needs in this region. So thank you for all you do. This is awesome. And again, for the space today. This is great. I like this room. All right. I see that Alan Reitz has joined us. Do you want to do a quick intro and hello, Alan, before we get started?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I was late. I'm Alan Reitz. I do public and government affairs for the Hanover Co-op food stores and auto service centers here in the Upper Valley area of Vermont and New Hampshire. And my policy areas can be kind of broad, like everybody on this call. I know we all have a very fluid to-do list. My main areas of focus are affordable workforce housing, equitable transportation, and small and mid-scale agricultural policy at a regional level. It can be local, it can be regional, it can be national. So that keeps me busy and on calls and important groups like this one. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. All right. So without any more delay here, just kidding. So this was one of the issues. If you remember, we did a survey back in the May timeframe, or maybe even April. I can't remember if it was before I started or after. But we asked folks what were some of the more pressing issues in our region regarding economic development, and outdoor recreation and tourism was one of the top issues. And so we invited both Chris Thayer as well as Mike Morin, but unfortunately he had a family death, and so he will not be with us today. But they work closely with the Forest Center, Northern Forest Center at AMC. So Chris is going to actually go after Taylor, who's going to set up some of the numbers, and we did a deep dive into the outdoor rec plan that was launched back in June, I believe. And we did ask, sorry, I just spaced her name. Janelle, thank you. Appreciate it. I was close.
Censor regrets.
Yes, and I do, yeah. So she hopefully will join us next year with an update, because the numbers in the fall will be really helpful to seeing how summer and fall of 2024 has helped the North Country. But in the interim, there's a lot of great things that are happening already on the ground, which we wanted to hear about both from Chris, and then we'll get an update from Mike at some point as well. But again, we did a deep dive, and Taylor actually pulled some really great information. So I'm going to turn it over to her to give us a little bit of a snapshot of that. All right. So can everybody online see this? Alan or?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just took some data that I saw on that report that I thought was pertinent to today and kind of a general overview. There. So there was some. Okay, yeah,
It'll
so
be a little less.
yeah, there was some data collected overall for New Hampshire, so about 30,000 jobs and 1.5 billion in wages and salaries, which is a lot for our little state. Total economic contribution was 3.3 billion.
Of the outdoor industry.
Mhm.
Okay, just making sure everybody understands that.
These are some smaller studies done. There were also others, but they were more dated, like a 2014, which I didn't think was, which I thought was less relevant to today. The ski areas in 2019, 384 million a year in direct economic impact, and almost 7,500 direct and indirect jobs. Fishing, again, a lot in freshwater, 215 million in direct impact, and then 150 in the direct impact of trout fishing alone. Bike shops, this was 2020, there's 200 direct jobs, and then 30 million direct sales. OHRV 2021, 165 million in direct economic impact, and then 1,689 direct jobs were supported by that. So they had split it up into different regions. So this northern, that CEDR, includes Coos, Grafton, Carroll, and Belknap counties. There's 231 retail, service, or rental businesses in the area, and 84% of them are local. And the other, which would account for national or regional, like chain type things. Over 50% of businesses in New Hampshire are located in this region. So we make up a lot of the region. So what businesses are in the northern CEDR region? 100% of the whitewater outfitters and guides and OHRV rental businesses are in this northern part. It also makes sense if you've ever been to Gorham or maybe the town of Berlin, Jericho, it's really a popular thing there. 92% snowmobile rental businesses, 78% motorized boat rentals, 72% mountain bike rentals, 58% of the ski rentals, 56 for-profit campgrounds, and then 45% of the retail businesses, like the outdoor retail business.
Is it true that golf is not included in the outdoor recreation definition?
It wasn't included in the tourism report, so I'm gonna say no. Yeah. Which is actually something interesting that could be looked at, because I think golf is also really popular. Yeah. They also broke it down into more smaller regions. So I also took a look at the Great North Woods and then the White Mountains. And this has some really interesting data. So this is on the retail sales and rental businesses in both the Great North Woods and then we'll talk about White Mountains after. But this is just the Great North Woods. So for retail, there's 15 campgrounds, 2 fishing, 1 hiking, and 2 hunting. No climbing and mountaineering. So those are retail, meaning they sell that gear and like clothes, outdoor things that pertain to that activity. Rental businesses, retail sales, and repairs. So there's 4 mountain biking, 19 OHRV and ATV, 8 paddle sports that could include paddle boarding, that could include kayaking, canoeing, downhill skiing and snowboarding. There's 0 because there's not really ski areas in the Great North Woods. Snowmobiling, 15, and then 6 motorized boating. Yeah. All right, and then the White Mountains, 52 campgrounds. Yeah, I think the White Mountains region had the most amount of campgrounds when I looked at it.
Like in all of New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think out of all the regions, there were more here. fishing 17, hiking 29, hunting 13, and then climbing and mountaineering 7. So in the Great Northwoods, there were 0, but there's 7 in the White Mountains. So then if we go look down at the rental, retail, and repair, 46 mountain biking repair, 11 OHRV and ATV, 22 paddle sports, 52 downhill skiing and snowboarding, much larger jump from the 0 in Great Northwoods, right? Snowmobiling 12, and then motorized boating is 8.
Are those discrete businesses or can they be both? Like can one be skiing in the winter and mountain biking in the summer?
Yeah, so so it could be both. Like they could sell like LL Cody's, for example, right? That could fall under them selling fishing and hunting, right? That could be, so like the fishing and hunting, that could be like the one store.
That's the same place.
Yeah, but they had
Okay.
it, yeah. So they didn't discern like the specific spots, so.
So some of it could be double counted.
Yes, some of it could be double counted, yes. That I couldn't help. But yeah, that's it for me.
And of those campgrounds, is that
It's-
like broken? And I don't know why this may not matter, but like a campground, is that camping? Where am I going with this? Like, what's where I'm going is motorhomes, RVs. Are
Yeah.
these like, is there some breakdown?
Yeah, so
between
I think it
percentage of
includes-
motorhomes versus camping, or et cetera?
I think it includes both, but it does break it down on private, US Forest Service, and then was it like
National,
private,
state, private, and local. And
yeah, so it did have 3 different breakdowns, but I don't know if it was like strictly tenting or RV. I think it was like a combination of both.
I was gonna ask, does it include state parks?
Yeah.
we had it broken down like that, but I felt that it might be dizzying for y'all.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, that was a big, I had it out on all like this big table and it was like,
So if you keep going down, we're not sharing anymore, but I will include that in the, just so if you wanted to
Oh,
see the
just
breakdown, because it's interesting, but it was a lot. It would be fun in a study. I mean, I can only imagine looking through the actual report. So thanks to Taylor for taking through all that. It was awesome. But yeah, so we wanted to make sure we set that stage for Chris's work. Because again, the report's really well done, and I feel like Janelle did a great job of getting it out there, but I feel like we need to keep reminding ourselves about this information, especially where there are big numbers like around, ORVs and, and fishing and mountaineering and hiking, some of those, like, we know that they're big, but what do we do to grab onto those?
Now, the first slide was $30 million in mountain biking statewide, right? Not North Country.
Yes,
Oh,
statewide, yeah.
okay.
So the first couple slides were statewide, and then she had.
That's a lot of sales of bikes, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. Mhm. Yeah. Great. And so now we're going to turn it over to Chris, who gave us some great feedback that he's been with AMC for many, many years. So we appreciate
Spending
it.
more time on the trails than working at PowerPoint. So. Right, Taylor.
That's what we want. It's under the.
It's like
dots.
I know, I can't. It won't let me
Click on the dots.
Yeah. It's
Weird. I'll let you click there. Yeah, there you go. And then,
Okay.
Awesome.
there you go.
Great.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Perfect. No.
Sorry.
All right.
I'm messing it up.
So it's great to be here today to talk about the outdoor recreation economy, tourism economy in New Hampshire, and specifically here in the North Country. It's too bad Janelle couldn't make it, although to be honest, I spent time yesterday with Janelle virtually as well as in person on the summit of Mount Washington. I know, rough work, right? On Tuesday, where we were being hosted by the Mount Washington Observatory, along with some senior staff from Senator Shaheen. And had a great day up there talking about the mountain environment on Mount Washington, as well as a roundtable on the outdoor recreation economy with a whole host of partners like Great Glen, the Cog Railway, on a gorgeous, bizarre October day on the summit. So a little bit more about me. I have worked for AMC for 35 years. I'm a resident of Sugar Hill, New Hampshire. My family and I have lived there since about 2003. Previous to that, we lived over in the Mount Washington Valley for a number of years. Well, not we, I did. It was before family. And all during that time, have worked for the Appalachian Mountain Club since 1989 when I started seasonally working on front lines in the backcountry and the front country, information centers, huts, lodges. Over that sort of arc of career, I have spent time managing our lodges in the White Mountains, our hut system in the White Mountains, coordinating search and rescue with different agencies, overseeing our educational programs. These days, I have a great portfolio of work where I represent AMC on New Hampshire-based policy work. So I spend time in Concord with other environmental NGO partners and with our great legislature, with agencies and agency head, focused on policy priorities of AMC, our conservation goals, and finding those opportunities here in New Hampshire. I also develop and maintain state and federal partnerships and other types of partnerships. That includes with the White Mountain National Forest, where we have a very long partnership going back. We predate the National Forest, so certainly going back to the establishment of the White Mountain National Forest, as well as New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, both state parks and forests and lands, where we have relationships with those agencies, and other partnerships, a whole suite of different, and we'll get into that in a little bit, suite of partnerships, whether that's with local communities, like the town of Gorham, for example, whether that's with local land trusts, where we do stewardship work, or lots of those other great organizations that I'm sure you've heard of in the North Country and the broader state, folks like the Forest Society of New Hampshire, SPNF, or the Nature Conservancy of New Hampshire, or New Hampshire Lakes Association, all those types of entities, Connecticut River Conservancy, all those types of entities. And a lot of that focuses that contracts piece for me. I support our professional trails team on lining up contracts, trail contracts, 3 to 5 years out for our trails teams from Maine down to Virginia. There's been an infusion, as many of you know, and some of you work for the folks who have made this possible. The Great American Outdoors Act has infused a lot of great resources into recreation and into trails specifically. We're putting that to work with partners, and partners are putting that to work. And so we do a lot of that contracting work with them throughout the region. And you'll see a snippet of what we're doing here in New Hampshire, but it's really much more expansive than that as well. So a bit about AMC, if you don't already know, at a glance. We are coming up on our 150th anniversary. We are the oldest conservation recreation organization in the country, founded back in 1876 in Boston. We've had roots here in New Hampshire since that time, members exploring the White Mountains, mapping the White Mountains, and establishing a footprint since that time, as I said, sort of predating some of the public lands since that time. So we're getting, a big anniversary like that. You start planning now, for that anniversary. You want to, make sure that you consider all the elements, consider all the partners that we've worked with over 150 years. So there's some great, exciting planning going on around that for 2026. Our mission is a bedrock of what we focus on: fostering the protection, enjoyment, and understanding of the outdoors. It's big and broad. We can break that down into buckets related to recreation, related to education and connecting people in the outdoors, and related to conservation and protecting and stewarding the outdoors. And so I put up there a couple of fun facts about AMC. We maintain 1,800 miles of trails across AMC's region. That includes 260 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Sometimes people who aren't fully aware of the Appalachian Mountain Club get us confused with our friends at the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. That is the maintaining organization for the full Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. We are one of the maintaining clubs. We happen to be one of the largest maintaining 260 miles of the Appalachian Trail. And that includes mileage in New Hampshire as well as Maine and down to the mid-Atlantic in Connecticut and Massachusetts and other parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about professional trail building in our Conservation Corps in a moment. That education piece, we lead thousands of outdoor recreation and conservation activities each year. Those are both staff-led for a variety of audiences, but they're also volunteer-led. In fact, the Giants portion of that is led by our 11 chapters and those chapters leaders that are leading trips. They're getting certified. They're connecting with folks and getting them outdoors on local recreation walks and hikes and climbing and paddling and those types of things, all the way up to a lot of what we do in this region, the staff-led trips and guided adventures. We are known as a resource for gear, trip information, and outdoor experiences. Anybody who's passed through Crawford Notch or Pinko Notch, particularly during busy times, know that Pinko Notch Visitor Center is one of the busiest visitor centers on the National Forest. Location. It's at the base of Tucker Ravine in Mount Washington. And these days, back when I started, it was all about in-person and the phone. Now, of course, it's also digital and email and lots of other things that we're juggling for people looking for trips and trip information and outdoor experiences. We're also land and recreation managers. A lot of that work we do under permit. We have the privilege of being able to be on the White Mountain National Forest, both campsites and our huts and Pinko Notch Visitor Center specifically under a special use permit or a series of permits with the White Mountain National Forest. We do own some land. We own about 20 acres in Crawford Notch that the Highland Center sits on. We own an acre of land at Madison Hut up on Mount Madison. We bought that from the Brown Paper Company back in the day. You can imagine above tree line was not, of worth for the Brown Paper Company, so they sold it to us for a good deal and some good foresight by AMC members back then. And we also own our largest landholding is at the moment in New Hampshire is 1,200 acres Cardigan Reservation down in the Lakes region in Alexandria, New Hampshire, that abuts New Hampshire State Forest and Lands property. So we have a great working relationship there. That used to be our largest landholding. We now own almost 130,000 acres of land in Maine, up in the Moosehead Lake region, and we actively manage that for recreation, but we also steward that for sustainable timber harvesting with local contractors. So that's part of our Maine Woods initiative, where we've engaged the local communities, including the business community, making sure that the land is open for recreation and traditional uses, but also that it's managed for that timber basket sustainably in that region. Portions of the property, obviously, forest reserves as well. You can't just sort of do that as a conservation organization without that planning. But we employ professional foresters who work for AMC and manage those lands and wildlife habitat. And that's sort of, for us, we've been doing that now about 20 years or so, and it really got us into understanding what it meant to be a land manager like the White Mountain National Forest, and meeting a variety of sort of interests and user bases and everything. It was an aha moment for us as a conservation organization to instead of just advocating, also operating and understanding the push and pull and the balance of that. Community collaborations, agency, non-governmental organizations. We employ researchers. We have advocates, an advocacy base that works in state capitals as well as Washington, D.C. And we're also leaders of the National Land and Water Conservation Fund Coalition, working with national partners and definitely regional partners. And I bolded a couple of these elements for the purposes of today's presentation. We're going to go a little deeper on our trail work here in the White Mountains, as well as our outdoor recreation services here in the White Mountains. So the trail and recreation management for AMC, we have a suite of different programs. We employ professional trail crews. We actually are the oldest organization paying people to do trail work, going back to just after our founding in the early 1900s. We also employ AmeriCorps crews as part of that. This year we had about 8 professional trail crews working across the region from Maine down to the Mid-Atlantic, and about 22 AmeriCorps members between Massachusetts and New Hampshire doing projects. And we'll see some of those projects in a little bit. We certainly have regional volunteers, folks who are trail adopters who adopt their 2 miles, 1 mile of trail that are dedicated and passionate about those trails close to home. And we are a nationally accredited conservation corps through the Corps Network. And we're actually one of the few corps that do machine-built trails. So we build all-persons trails and using smaller machines to do that. We don't build rail trails and that kind of extent, but there's a suite of services there. Youth Workforce Development Crews, we have a partnership with JAG, Jobs for America's Graduate in the city of Berlin. We've had that program for several years, thanks to funding from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and others. We also operate a youth development crew down in Holyoke, Massachusetts as well. We have staff-led volunteer opportunities where our trail leaders get folks out on given projects. Last Saturday, my son and I were up in Lancaster working on a newly opened section of the Heritage Trail with the Lancaster Conservation Commission and the Northern Forest Center that's managing that project along with the town of Lancaster. And that's one of those examples of contracting with AMC to do some of that work. Our professional trail crew is now working in Lancaster for the next 2 weeks on the Heritage Trail. Trail training instructions, Camp Dodge Trails Training Center is our regional trails center over on Route 16 in the vicinity of Great Glen and the Mount Washington Auto Road there. We offer trail trainings for AMC members and volunteers, but also for partners in the general public from May through October. It just closed. That includes a 5-day trail skills college that's in year 3 or 4, I think, where there's over 100 professional trail maintainers, contractors, folks that come together to do 5 days of workshops, land trust volunteers, all sorts of folks from across the region that come. There are different tracks. We bring in regional experts and national experts on trails training techniques. That's in May each year. We also do backcountry resource management, managing campsites in the White Mountain National Forest and elsewhere, including a suite of campsites along the Connecticut River, Paddlers Trail, and that professional trail services. There's a good example of building machine-built trails. That's in Acadia National Park, where we've had a multi-year contract up in Maine for several years. But we also finished a all-persons trail last year down at Cardigan, and that was a collaboration with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. That Trail Skills College that I mentioned earlier got off the ground thanks to Northern Border Regional Commission funding. So plug there for the NBRC that helped us. We got that. We got those resources just as the pandemic was breaking. What a great time to come together as a trail community. So we had a little bit of a pause and then used that funding, and it's really set up a foundation of great trail community building and learning and living. These are some examples of some of the trail projects we have going on this year. And you can see 16 projects in New Hampshire, but 31 projects across AMC's region. So we have about 10 or 11 full-time professional trail staff. I work closely with our trails director. We have regional trails managers, supervisors, crew leads, those types of positions. So think workforce and outdoor recreation economy. There's a big piece of that. Trail work today is a trade. It's a skill. It's not sort of like in decades past where it was just folks going out. And some of that is because of climate. And some of that is also because of the thousands of people enjoying the outdoors and using it. And some of these trails are real legacy trails that need to be completely rebuilt.
Chris, do you supplement the paid staff with volunteer?
We do, yeah. That's that volunteer piece. In fact, the sweet spot on a lot of these projects, Glenn, is when we can do both and we can bring to bear both of that. We're in a multi-year project, year 3 of 5 on the Franconia Loop Trails. This is thanks to a congressionally directed spending request through Senator Shaheen, 1.125 million, and the total project is really on the order of 2 to 3 million because that involves a variety of partners, including the state, as well as an organization called the World's Trails Network. And that has had probably about 10 to 12 volunteer days every Saturday, almost through the summer and fall. I did one back in July. Has had anywhere from 10 to 12 volunteers on each of those days. And in some cases, some of those people have done 3 Saturdays. You know, they keep coming back. So there's an element there of that.
I'm just counting how many of those are in our region. It looks.
So yeah, so let's see. So the Privy project, anybody know what a Privy is?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need a code. Produce privies. But the Privy project is Great American Outdoors Act funding. That's across the White Mountain National Forest. So that would be across this entire region. You know, don't ping me on where in the county, Coos, Grafton, you know, maybe not Duckman, but, you know, Coos, Grafton, Carroll, there would be projects throughout that. That was funded through Great American Outdoors Act. I think it's about 6 to 8 Privy reconstructions benefiting the public in the White Mountain National Forest there. We finished year 2 of 2, started last year and finished this year. I mentioned Lancaster Town, and you know, there's a variety here. You can see we do contract work, Dartmouth College Trail Skills Training for their outing club and their crews on Dartmouth lands. Lots of signed contracts, lots of work through the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Rumney Rocks, that's a multi-year project on the climbing cliffs down there, building accessible trail access to the base of those routes at Rumney Rocks, which is a internationally known climbing area down near Plymouth. Green Hills, there's a good example with TNC. I mentioned Franconia Loops Trail. Has anybody heard of that big project in Franconia?
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's been a little bit of press about it. We actually won a regional award from the Forest Service for our work on that project last year. And we're excited. We're coming up. It's a 5-year investment, so we have 2 more years to go. You know anything about that loop? There's a lot of work to be done on the Falling Waters section. Some people call it the Falling Peoples section, and we're looking to improve that so maybe less people fall. But most trail work is done, as my colleagues always remind me on our trails team, to sustain and stabilize the resource. It's not to make your treadway easier and your hike easier. It's all about the natural environment. And if they can do both, then it's a winning element. So lots of other projects, Androscoggin area, Amnesic Ravine. There's a good example of a local town, Meredith Conservation Commission down in Lakes Region called us. We're doing a contract for a trail bridge on some town land down in Meredith. And there's that great example of the Heritage Trail, as well as Lancaster Town Forest Lands with the Northern Forest Center is working closely with the town of Lancaster, contracted us to do both volunteer community events as well as professional trail crew pieces. And then that last one down on Mount Monadnock, this is year 2 of doing some work down there for Spinniff and with Spinniff on Mount Monadnock and the Dublin Trail. So 16 projects in New Hampshire. We're always looking 3 to 5 years out. So we're always meeting with partners. We're always interested in towns and communities that might be interested in building out their outdoor recreation base, their town forests, their networks of trails that maybe need some help. Maybe there's a project through LWCF funding, those types of things. A lot of this work is funded through Federal Highway and the Recreation Trails Program that comes down to the NCR, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and we're trying to do a better job of making ourselves known as a vendor, as a professional trail contractor through and for the state. We're actually doing something similar, trying to make that known through NBRC and their Timber to Transit program as well. And so it's an exciting time to be in trails. There's a lot of work, plenty of contractors. That Franconia Loop Trails project is a terrific example of about 6 to 8 other partners. That includes professional trail contractors, folks who are not nonprofits who do this for a living, firms like Off the Beaten Path and Town for Trails and those entities. But we also will subcontract crews because AMC can't do all of this work with SCA New Hampshire, Vermont Conservation Corps, Northwood Stewardship Center. And it really makes for a great community of sharing and learning. And the public's eyeballs are just like fascinated because they see them, particularly in the summer months, working and working and working. Here's a little piece visually of our trails program. The talent comes from all over the region, all over the country. As it relates to workforce, that's why we're working with Janelle and other partners, because we would love to home grow our workforce here, employ folks like my 18-year-old who is interested in trail work, but not just my kids, everybody else's kids. So we have real opportunities around workforce development, both through CTE centers and CTC centers, on through the community college and the college system here in New Hampshire. And these are that bridge on the left there is at Cardigan, on Cardigan State Forest that we built. There's Rumney Rocks. They're actually doing stone cutting and shaping. And if Chuck is on and not just sort of hiding on the presentation, that lower right hand, that's a piece of that work on the old bridle path of the Franconia Loop Trail. That's all rebuilding with stone. So cutting, shaping, drilling, doing that stone work is transformational stone. It's transformational trail work at the present time. And believe it or not, we knew it, but believe it or not, it is held up to the deluge of rain that we're getting, because under each of those staircases is crushed gravel and everything that's been made on site for drainage and everything. So none of that is getting washed out. And we've had some pretty big storms that have been testing it.
Some good engineering.
Some pretty good engineering, yeah.
I have a question about so what do the wages look like for some of these folks? Does it depend on the region for it to be living wage?
Yeah, it can. Generally, our trail crews start at about $15 to $16 an hour, but senior leaders can earn $20 an hour, and some of our field crew supervisors, some of the folks working machines, are up in the mid-20s to almost $30 an hour. And that's, those are competitive wages. We build those into the contracts, and we get the results of the quality of the work and the retention of that workforce. And we do have a number of folks who are 10-month seasonals. They might go off, do something else, and they come back and lock in for a contract. And then we certainly have folks that work in between, college summers, all those sort of traditional pieces. When it comes to the outdoor experiences piece of the outdoor recreation economy here in this region for AMC, we continue to operate our high hut system. Some folks who know about AMC know us for our trail work and trails, but they also equally know us for our high hut system, 8 huts stretched along the Appalachian Trail throughout the White Mountain National Forest and Franconia Notch State Park. Lonesome Lake Hut is in Franconia Notch State Park under permit with DNCR there. Backcountry campsites, we have about a dozen or so across the forest that we maintain and manage under permit for the White Mountain National Forest. Some of those are staff. Some are not. Some have rotating caretakers. And if you think about backcountry campsites, you're hosting folks who are tenting in that backcountry environment, but you're also dealing with safety considerations and managing human waste. The same thing that the hut crews are doing. We manage a lot of human waste in a given year, and so there's a variety of systems that we use to do that. We operate a hiker shuttle throughout the region to major trailheads. It complements what the state parks launched in Franconia Notch State Park back before the pandemic, and that they've continued carrying forward. Our lodges, this is Highland Center in Crawford Notch, opened back in 2003. We have Pinkham Notch Visitor Center. We also have volunteer camps and cabins. AMC manages about 60 different facilities from Maine down to Virginia under a variety of different land management relationships, some with the Park Service, National Park Service, some with state parks, and some on land owned by the White Mountain National Forest. So an example of volunteer camps and cabins in that piece of our outdoor experience portfolio is 3 Mile Island. in New Hampshire, not the one farther south where I grew up in New Jersey, but Pennsylvania, I think. But this one's 3 miles out from the town of Center Harbor in Lake Winnipesaukee. And that's a full service camp that's open from June through August, and then it's self-service in the fall months. We also have a full service camp up in Acadia National Park that we operate, and lots of smaller self-service cabins sprinkled everywhere. Roadside visitor centers like the Crawford Depot Visitor Center in Pinco Notch, guided adventures, adults, family adventures year-round, winter, spring, summer, fall. We have a very experienced complement of outdoor guides that are backed up by a great group of leadership training staff who train them, as well as training thousands of volunteer leaders how to lead groups out. We also have a group operation at a lot of our lodges that includes school groups and groups. We've had past partnerships actually with Boys and Girls Club, part of the summer program way back. And custom adventures are people plan their own adventures. So you can sort of see a snapshot. This is 2023 data that I pulled, 100,000 bed nights. That Outdoor Journey Fund is a fund that we launched with support of private donors, corporate donors like LL Bean, and it allows groups to apply if they match a certain criteria, and we're able to sponsor or support their trips in the outdoors. We have a huge piece of outdoor equity that we're focused on to diverse our user base in the outdoors. The Outdoor Journey Fund is a big piece of that. So are All Persons Trails that we're building across the region. Lots of interactions with lots of hikers. There are more than 49,000 hikers that are out there. Usually in the backcountry in the White Mountains, there's about 150 to 175,000 people a year. There's visitation of the White Mountain. I think it's still around 6 to 7 million. That's generally more than Yellowstone, Yosemite combined. But a portion of those folks actually get into the backcountry, which is a good thing on some level for the resources. I always find this data point interesting. 540 people spent unexpected overnights in the huts last year. What that means is that the huts are reservation basis, but we had folks who were day hikers who bit off a little bit more than they could chew. Luckily for them, they didn't show up at a press release from New Hampshire Fish and Game, or maybe get a ride down the cog or all the other things that you see in the news. But there are a significant portion of folks who, luckily stumble out or, spend the night with us, those types of things, because of just the heavy volume of people that are out there each and every night and each and every season. And so with that, there's a whole intensity. And this is just AFC. I can tell you about a suite of programs that a lot of other partners do that are around volunteers at trailheads, alpine stewards in high visitation areas, and that sense of search and rescue calls. On average, New Hampshire Fish and Game says there are about 180 calls a year. We participated in 99 search and rescue calls last year. Year to date, right now through September, I think we were at about 93 or 94. So just for us, and so it's busy, and it's busy in terms of, if you see those press releases, they're highlighting hikers, but they're also highlighting the broader outdoor recreation base of a lot of folks who are renting OHRVs and enjoying trails north, south, east, west across the state, and you see those on Monday morning press releases of what happens.
Chris, are those usage numbers leveled off at all, or are they just continuing to increase every year?
I would say they definitely spiked during the pandemic, and now there's sort of steady growth. They're not really leveling off. It's not spiking either. You could sort of argue it's managed growth, but we're still managed. We still are under-resourced in the state, I think, in terms of being able to accommodate the flow of folks, despite strong public-private partnerships.
And so a place like Franconia Notch gets a lot of attention and a lot of resources, but how's the pressure on other parking areas, other roadsides, et cetera? Like we hear a lot about, parking for 6 cars and it's full at 6 in the morning. What is that still a thing beyond the real famous places.
It definitely spiked during the pandemic because, everybody remembers we were overwhelmed, in terms of our mission in a good way. People were discovering the outdoors, they were getting out, they were, using that. But we definitely know, and I volunteer for my local land trust, that there was spillage. Folks got to, and local towns saw this where, if you couldn't get a spot by the river in Franconia Notch, you were going to come to Franconia and get that spot by the river. And that might mean walking through the town, park to do that. In some cases, it was even walking through someone's backyard because you could see the river, those types of things. That has leveled off a little bit. But what that has meant, though, is that there's still strong visitation at all those places that are powered by social media. Social media is one of those things where, someone does a hike, whether it's a waterfall, a land trust land or whatever, they post it and, suddenly 200 people sort of say, I got to do that. And,
You haven't seen like in Vermont, near us in the Upper Valley, we have towns in Vermont that are closing off roads because they're like, no, locals only. Yeah. You haven't seen anything like that.
No, but, then you were probably alluding to, the Columbus Day, Indigenous, the holiday weekend in October. And, that sort of just stressed resources. It stressed, first off, DOT, because the highway was just clogged, the interstate, let alone local roads. But then that really presented challenges when the highway was clogged, the trails were clogged, the parking lots were clogged, and someone needed to be carried out that had an injury. And it took much longer for Fish and Game and volunteer teams to get there. And there were actual cases of that over that weekend where people, had to wait while responders were trying to get through traffic and crowds and parking wherever they could to respond to the person in need. So there still are those spikes at, well-known places, state parks and national forests alike, and land trusts, Mount Major, that the Forest Society manages, but and a lot of that is just precipitated by social media, and there's a lot of media out there that's National Geographic called Franconia Notch one of the most internationally prominent hikes in the world, and it's sort of like thank you. It's great from a tourism business side. Tourism, outdoor recreation, second leading industry in New Hampshire, but if you ask me. We also need to invest to maintain that infrastructure, and we also need to invest in that workforce. We're going to, burn people out. You heard the Cog Railway has been saying a bit of that because they just hit a brick wall on that holiday weekend in October, and the public sometimes doesn't always react well to sort of, I know you want to do this experience, but we're full, we're sold out, the day is done. That kind of thing. And that can either bring out the best of people or the worst of people, depending on, how passionate they are about it. So these are just sort of images of that whole sort of suite of outdoor recreation services. The search and rescue carryouts, that's on the summit of Mount Washington, the Fish and Game and Partners, Pinkham Notch Visitor Center under permit with the U.S. Forest Service, Madison Hut, guided adventures and that classic sort of visitor center. I can't believe there are only 2 people in that photo because usually there are a lot more people in that room. And that's what I have for the purposes of AMC and today. That's the Franconia Ridge, looking south, and happy to take additional questions, but also to stimulate a discussion around the outdoor recreation economy in terms of what you might be thinking about in terms of, what's the promise, what's the next step, what are the challenges, who else is involved beyond all this stuff about AMC. So,
Looks like we have our first question from Alan.
Hi,
Chris, a good day, or I guess we can say good afternoon now. That was impressive. I appreciated hearing your background as you started this presentation, and then you gave us which I know is just a thumbnail sketch of everything that happens, but excellent presentation, very grateful for it. And your last comment there about, having, our portion of the great outdoors sold out. I'm sorry, we're booked. And that can be a hard concept for some people to, wait a second, it's the woods. How can the woods be full? Well, your aspect of serving the region and the tourist economy, as I was listening to your presentation, I couldn't help but think, every trail town would do well to have such a presentation in front of their select board or, you know, other town groups, not that you necessarily have the bandwidth. But again, kudos to you, the broad team that you lead and work with, just incredible. And as I look at that 100,000 plus guest nights in the huts and lodges, we also know that you're not actually able to count just how many people are on your trails, because it's not like I've got to check in. So an impressive system. So thank you. I'll just put a quick note. I'd love to connect with you after as far as your 2026 event goes. The Hanover Co-op, as you probably know, has the Appalachian Trail exiting right at our parking lot in Hanover. Hanover is a designated trail-friendly town or hiker-friendly town. And I saw so many of the slides here that I could see being useful in our stores, on our monitors, to make people aware of this resource, certainly so they can use it and certainly so they can respect it. Certainly through Angelo, we can trade emails.
Great.
Would love to do whatever I can to do a small part for an incredible resource and the great work that's happening.
Well, thanks. And thanks, Alan. And when people say our trails, I just want to make clear that we maintain, but in many cases, we don't own and manage those trails. You know, in a few cases I mentioned earlier, but you know, we do a lot of maintenance on public trails and the agencies that manage those trails. And I'm always very clear to highlight that because we work very close with those dedicated agency professionals. And understandably, they can get a little ruffled when the public might not know that it's land that's owned by the public, Mount Washington State Park or, you know, places in between. But thanks for your comments, Al.
Yeah, and whatever your role is and whatever your connection is, understand that I'm happy to be a resource.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a fan of Hanover Food Co-op. My mom lives down that way, so she's a frequent customer.
Did we hear another question?
Did Chuck show up again? I'm just picking on Chuck.
Chris, I think it's interesting, like, does the AMC have, and maybe this is off topic a little bit, but I guess I'm interested in sort of the community relations, or as we talk about economic development, how communities either adjacent to the trail or adjacent to the tourism respond to this growth and interest. Like you know, you mentioned Vermont, right? And I'm thinking of Woodstock, which was in the news because everyone comes and says, "Oh, we got foliage season coming. We need porta potties. We need outdoor seating."
I saw that.
And they're like, "No, we're good." And which is kind of stunning for everybody because then it just sort of perpetuates the problem. And I'm wondering if the AMC has any experience with or positions on like community relations around. Here's what you got to do for this time of year to maximize this, or education for communities around like. Maybe porta potties aren't a bad thing, or maybe they are. I don't know. Like the kinds of conversation around that.
It's a great question, and we do invest a lot in community relations. I mean, that's part of like my job over the last 10 to 15 years. We're stretched with capacity, like any organization and anybody involved in this industry and cluster. And I would say that there's a diversity of opinions in local communities around outdoor recreation. We see it, we hear it, we know our neighbors. I have neighbors that sort of know it, they're plugged into it. A neighbor of mine is the manager of Wheat State Park, so she works for a state agency managing that state park. But we also have neighbors in our community who would just as soon not see more people coming in, and that tension. And so for us as an organization, but also for a lot of the partners that we work with, it's all around good planning. North Country Council should love this. It's all about good regional planning, good thinking, good community conversation. So you're not assuming in the community that everybody wants to embrace outdoor recreation. Everybody wants to, and you've seen examples of this. Where good intentions around OHRVs in Gorham, abutting other different interests about what the town of Gorham should be. Gorham's actually, besides Hanover, that second designated Appalachian Trail community in New Hampshire. Hanover's one, Gorham's the other. So a lot of it is working with partners. The state is leading a great effort right now. credit to the commissioner, BEA Taylor Caswell, as well as travel and tourism and Janelle's office with outdoor recreation, bringing together what has been called our visitor use management working group, trying to sort of shape some of these at a state level. There were lots of pledges and everything that came out of the pandemic. People signed pledges like, I will not do this in this community while I'm recreating and everything. And the jury's out on how that sort of has gained traction, and I think there will be more studies about is that really changing people's mind shift. But that working group, though, that includes federal partners like the White Mountain National Forest, we're focused on how to get the information out in advance in a holistic way. The public, in my experience, does not recognize shades of uniforms or boundaries of who manages what lands. All they know is their buddy said this hike or this paddle or this ski is amazing and you should go do it. So it's beholden on us as a state and with agencies and industry sector to come up with an educational campaign that is broad, that is inclusive and diverse in terms of pursuits too. We all see plenty of vehicles driving around the region that might be pulling ATVs, but they also have boats on the roof. They got packs in the back of their truck. And if it's muzzleloader season, or they also have their hunting firearm. And so my point is, people are multidisciplinary more in their recreation these days. Sure, you do have segments of like that weirdly passionate mountain bike crowd, that is like, all throughout the North Country with their networks. Mountain bikers, and you saw it on Taylor's slide. I mean, it is a huge piece of the economy right now.
Yeah,
mountain bikers and blue roofs. I mean, it's insane.
When I lived in Colorado, Colorado where I lived was really big mountain biking, and I was like, oh, I've never mountain biked before, and some kids in my class were like, what do you mean you've never mountain biked in Rumby? That's famous. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know that, but these kids in Colorado in my class were like, that's famous.
Yeah, no, that's right. And if Mike was here to give the Northern Forest Center some credit here, they have managed to Bike the Borderlands program for several years and established a Ride with Gratitude stewardship program. And that Bike the Borderlands, it includes mountain biking networks in Quebec, but also Kingdom Trails, Cross Cycling Trails, all these regional networks, because it recognizes the power of those folks in their pursuits, and the notion that they might do one network, but what's next? How can they come back? And seemingly they all land at a brewery at the end of the day. Someone told me it was Tyler Ray, who's the head of Grain Outdoor Alliance, lives over in Mount Washington Valley. GOA, you searched it, is the industry trade group for outdoor recreation and a strong partner of the state in terms of outdoor recreation. And he literally said the other day, it was on the summit of Mount Washington, that he sees breweries as the new libraries in communities. That gathering spot. And sure enough, you see it. Yeah, I never thought of it that way either. But also the events that they're doing. I mean, Big Day in Gorham is doing an event on the alpine environment. AMC is a part of that with the Mahoosic Land Trust, but their next event is with Protect Our Winters, another advocacy organization focused on climate, particularly obviously winter, and the shrinking of it. So they're incredible hubs. Reckless Brewery here in Bethlehem launched a beer in support of the search and rescue community. And so proceeds of those sales go to those half a dozen volunteer teams that work with the Hampshire Fish and Game. And there's no better showing of what that community, that search and rescue community is today, than the tragic death of the local CO, conservation officer, 2 weeks ago, and that service in Jefferson. Having gone, it was powerful. There were more than probably 200-300 people that were there. The governor was there. But there was a sea of shirts of different volunteer teams, search and rescue teams that have worked closely with that officer and obviously with Fish and Game and everything. And that really underscores the outdoor recreation economy today. It is an economy, it is an industry, it's also a community, it's a trails community, it's a volunteer community, search and rescue community. And yes, it is a business community. One of the challenges and opportunities we have is that we're still lifting that up with the state's help, with Janelle's office. But I think we have a lot more work to do with our legislators, our legislators in Concord, just about sort of who that is, what it means, and unpacking and how it is such a huge draw for people who want to live, work, and play in New Hampshire, which is a huge piece of BEA's and BNO's mission. So, other good questions, though?
Question or a thought, a stream of consciousness maybe. So that made me think about, so I know for me and my husband, like we're not from Bethlehem. We moved to Bethlehem for the outdoors. Like, yes, my husband's from New Hampshire. Yes, he has family in Waterford, but like the outdoors was the number one draw for us. And thinking about how that ties in now to housing, to childcare, to how people are want to live in these places. How are we not just attracting younger people because of the outdoors, but getting people to stay here? Like, I want my 5-year-old to want to live here when she's, 20, 22, whatever. And I don't necessarily have a question. It's just something I'm thinking a lot about, is like this intersection of all these different parts. And curious if what the conversations AMC has been having around that, because I just know for so many of my friends and I, the outdoors was the draw. It was the number one. And yes, the other pieces are great too, but.
Yeah, and housing, I mean, not surprising for this group and everything, housing is a challenge. And that is true for this industry as well. Whether you're employing people seasonally or whether these are new young professionals who you are recruiting for full-time jobs, and their biggest challenge is, just like teachers and healthcare workers and everything else, finding that house that they can afford and that it's in good shape and everything. AMC is somewhat blessed because we have on-site housing for our seasonal workforce. We have dormitories, at that Camp Dodge Regional Training Center, at Hingham Notch Visitor Center, at the Highland Center. Of course, if you're living in a hut, there's a place to live there. But we feel that challenge as we've converted, even in my years of experience, a lot of seasonal workforce into a growing full-time workforce. That's good for the economy, right? We're converting seasonal jobs into full-time jobs because outdoor recreation is a 12-month industry. It wasn't too long ago where it was like a ghost town. You'd shut down, the October holiday weekend, and you'd be lucky if you were open in the winter that you'd be open by the holiday week. Otherwise, you'd throw the keys away and come back in May, Memorial Day. That's no longer the case. In good ways and bad ways, the fall is longer, winter is shorter. Those are the bad things, by the way. If you like winter, you might be living in the wrong state. But that's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely a challenge that is at the heart of the outdoor rec industry, that housing piece. It's actually just reading an article. There's two examples that you might have read about. The Conservation Fund has been partnering with AHEAD, Affordable Housing and Education Development, as well as SPNF on a conservation housing project, workforce housing project between Gorham and Berlin. In Berlin, I think it's in Gorham.
It's in Berlin.
It's in Berlin.
Yeah, the access.
It's been on the property. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, it's a beautiful property. And I was really excited as a Forest Society member to sort of see them protect a segment, really local, generous, person who sold that landscape to the Conservation Fund, and then passing through and working with partners like AHEAD and like SPNF to conserve a portion of it. But then also the long-term plan is to develop workforce housing. And at AMC, we have said, hey, we will be guaranteed tenants, for that type of, full-time professional type housing, along with other, Androscoggin Valley Hospital, and Wildcat Skier, and everybody else. So there's that local example of sort of those nascent efforts going on. I just read actually this morning about the Forest Service nationally through the last farm bill that needs to be reauthorized. They gained authorization to allow leases of public land that they own, and this is happening out in Colorado. They partnered with the 11 ski resorts in Colorado who are all facing workforce challenges, identified land that the Forest Service has owned that has basically been sitting dormant as administrative uses. So this is not like your pristine old growth forest. This is sort of like lots of federal land ownership. And what's the best intention of that given the stressors? This is in Summit County, Colorado. So they're working forward. They're going to break ground on a workforce housing, project. I think it's a Texas developer that's working with all the entities to do that. And I sent that actually to the forest supervisor this morning, sort of saying, you might know about this, but this is actually kind of cool. I don't know if we have this land base. We have 800,000 acres, which seems like not a lot, but it's not on some level. But we got to get the Farm Bill reauthorized first. So there are those challenges that they can't push forward in any other projects nationally without that Farm Bill and that authorization being reauthorized. So there's something I didn't know about where, Farm Bill, amazing huge piece of legislation that has lots of good tentacles in a variety of ways, and there's one with workforce housing. And that whole nut of workforce development, Steve knows this, that Janelle and Jason Seaman from UNH and a group of us are looking to build out pathways for outdoor recreation. Right now in New Hampshire, that's happening, but it's kind of popcorning. You have the Hugh Gallant Center here in Littleton that a number of years ago, thanks to Dave Parkless, launched a project. Bike tech program, they're investigating a ski tech program. And you see that sort of Plymouth's got some stuff going on, Kennett does, White Mountain Regional's always had some stuff, and there's stuff that I understand down at Fall River and the Seacoast, but it's not strategic at the level of sort of CTCs across the state. And also I call it sort of a three-legged stool. Janelle and Jason and others, we were talking about this yesterday, where in order to make a program like that, and the goal is that you really want a workforce pathway that links high school kids that are just thinking about their interests and how to apply that to careers to 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees here in New Hampshire, whether that's through UNH or PSU or all of our other fine institutions, and sort of develop those pathways, whether it's in outdoor recreation, whether it's specialized in that trail construction trades, some of these tech courses. But it's a three-leg course that you got to have or stool. You got to have the interest of the CTCs and the buy-in of like Department of Education and everything. You also critically need industry partners for apprenticeships. It's not going to work without and in that case, it can't be sort of 6 CTEs asking AMC because we're just not going to be able to do it. Feel that you really need to know what the map of the industry players are, and then figure out for the local CTC, maybe they should be working with the surf shop in Portsmouth that can do a program on building surfboards or, guiding, those types of things. So you need industry, and then you need students and student interest, and you can build the best program. And if there's no interest because they think that, or maybe they've been told that outdoor recreation is a leisure activity, it pays $5 an hour, it's not a career, that's not going to work either. And so we're deeply sort of invested in trying to sort of strategize as a group to build that out with state partners and obviously with school partners too. So that's a little bit of a workforce too.
Can I just quickly, I'm sorry, Chuck, just one. Chuck and I actually met with Dana Hilliard, who's the superintendent up in Colebrook.
Yeah.
He would be chomping at the bit to be part of that conversation.
Yeah. And that's the popcorning. And popcorning is a good thing in New Hampshire because people, they lead and they run with things, but sometimes it's sort of like, oh gosh, if we did it this way, or And we've had interns at AMC from Colebrook Academy who worked, with us. The biggest thing is often transportation. It's like, how's a kid from Colebrook going to get down to their opportunity with AMC because we're not, located close.
Well, even locally, I'm on Profile School Board, and we struggle getting kids just from Profile to Littleton to be able to.
Just for the local,
But it comes back to we can't hire enough bus drivers because we have nowhere to live. So it's so intertwined. Yeah,
no, that's right. Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Chris. So I'd like to just thank you for doing that brilliant presentation and seeing those steps on the old bridle path, having gone out there at your recommendation and seeing the steps in process and understanding the crushed gravel beneath them that handles the flow of water away from them. That's what's going to make them last 100 years. They're really well laid and beautiful. Last week, I received an email from one of your former colleagues, and he described described you as the Swiss Army knife of the AMC. And as you've seen all the blades come out today, everybody can realize it's like you can do anything.
I read that, and I've never been called that. I've been called a lot worse.
So I have a question relative to the Hike Safe program, which I know isn't your program, but it's a way of funding search and rescue, which is, pretty costly for the state and for all the, organizations that supply people into it. But is that program growing?
It is, it has grown since its inception. There's the Hike Safe is an educational campaign that was first and foremost founded as a partnership between the White Mountain National Forest and New Hampshire Fish and Game. Several years later, it's sort of brand confusion. It also includes like a Hike Safe card that you purchase through New Hampshire Fish and Game and their vendor system to buy in to support the search and rescue community. It doesn't make you immune from potentially civil penalties, although it doesn't hurt if you own one that you're already supporting the network. Since that inception, I think that legislation was introduced in the state by former Representative Gene Chandler, Speaker of the House, who brought that forward, and AMC supported at the time, because at the time there was no way for the hiking community to invest in search and rescue and the need that we had. You could purchase a hunting and fishing license, you still can do that, but now we also have this conduit that now I think it's approaching. The last figures I saw, Chuck, were almost $400,000 a year, or almost $400,000 this year, and this year's not done yet. So the word is getting out. We packaged the Hike Safe link into all of our outbound registrations, program registrations, New Hampshire Lodge registrations, and hut registrations as awareness. And I know the Forest Society and other partners are a big piece of that as well. I have to admit, I am one that sort of says that state agencies could do a little better collaboration and working together to amplify that message. The broader hiking recreation community does not land on New Hampshire Fish and Game's website to purchase their Hike Safe card. So I submitted some testimony. There's the third in my career study commission on the funding and sustainability of the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department that's about to produce a report. It's a study commission through the legislature on November 1st. Part of my testimony sort of reminded the legislators that we have an unmet opportunity here if New Hampshire BEA could work more closely with Fish and Game and with partners to really amplify the purchase of that card, what it goes towards, and put it on travel and tourism and put it out there a bit more to underscore investing in it, but also that message of Hike Safe. So it's a good question. It's doing great work, Chuck, but I happen to think that more could be done with the volume of people that are coming.
Well, quite possibly there could be a state senator who could connect this search and rescue world, state government coming up. So
there could be, yeah. We'll have to see after the election in a couple of weeks, but yeah.
Okay, thank you again, Chris. You're my image of the AMC, so I hope you have a lifelong commitment to them and they do to you.
Oh, thanks, Chuck. And I came here today thinking I would see you in person, so this is a major bummer.
I just want to touch on what you're saying, because I also am on my school board. I've been on my school for 10 years in the Messenger Valley. And we have kids that actually will graduate and they'll go out west to learn how to do outdoor recreation, outdoor trails, maintenance and stuff. They go to Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, and then we maybe see them back. So that tells me that we as a state we don't have good messaging that we can, you can do that here in the state. And then it's kind of, I like the three-legged stool, but I think the part where the state can do more is like the Department of Ed can do a lot better with coordination of the CTCs. In terms of funding, in terms of like just coordination. Our kids go to Vermont for their CTC because we don't have one locally, and so, but yet at the same time, both Claremont and Newport have 1 to 8 miles apart from each other. So it's just something that the whole state needs to look at if they want to take it seriously and see as how it's our number 2 industry, I think.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and my, Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, my kids are, I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and the 18-year-old got his axe training certification through AMC at the age of 13. But that's that exposure to parents and influence and everything. And we're trying to bust through that and sort of look at those career pathways so that, years ago, decades ago, when I went up to Colebrook Academy to do internship. This was part of a project that was funded by the Charitable Foundation back in that day. And we brought, it was myself, a archaeologist from the White Mountain National Forest. We had a conservation officer from Coos County, and it was awesome. The kids at Colebrook Academy were just eyes wide open, thinking about outdoor recreation. And I think we had over 100 different careers that we could represent, not like all standing in front of them, but through our agencies, through that. So bringing that forward and sort of lining that out with all of our educational partners is a huge opportunity, and one the state recognizes. And some of it is that there are states around us that are slightly ahead of us in pushing their own programs through. Maine is a classic example of that. There's some good work going on in Vermont too. There's in the state or northeastern Vermont University.
And they need more students in that program.
And that's where that student interest, you really want to look at the trend of students too over time to make sure that pipeline is there, because the industry is going to want that pipeline. I mean, I have a nephew who works for Bretton Woods, and he just got into their groomer and lift maintenance sort of program, and he's done some auto mechanic work and everything, but now he's on this track. And running a groomer, that's a 6-figure computerized piece of equipment that will take you across the country. It's the Chris Helms at Bretton Woods. One of his biggest challenges is right when he gets someone trained, they go out to Alta or something like that, somewhere like that. So we need to feel all those aspects.
How much overlap is there between doing an auto trade, learning that, and then going and transferring those skills to learn how to run a groomer, how to make?
There's a lot.
And so that type of connection is important.
We're looking at sort of the CTC clusters and aligning those. There's manufacturing, there's auto mechanic, there's business, commerce, agriculture, and natural resources. So you're not sort of asking, a bureaucracy, can you reformulate? There's even hospitality and tourism. If you click 3 links through, there's outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
So you can find it, but we need to, to your point, amplify it and sell it better.
Well, I'm thinking about the event you must have been at, Chris, 6 weeks or so ago, in
The outdoor fair?
the outdoor fair, where hundreds of young people were there, and it's almost like we got them all excited. But then now what? Right. So we need to answer the now what.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's that pathway of not just sort of like, these are the jobs, but sort of leading them. My colleague that Aaron knows, Colby Meehan, is a good example of someone who grew up in Maine, came on a mountain classroom program with AMC. That seeded her interest, sort of, so she says, in the outdoors, went off, got her training, and here she is now working and living full time and working for the Appalachian Mountain Club with a huge program that she's managing. So, connecting those dots, giving those experiences and those pathways is really important.
Awesome, this has been great. Thank you so much. Very
Do we have time for updates, Angie? I'm not sure what time it is. I didn't remind.
Yeah, we're gonna do updates.
Okay,
now.
super.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tie something together.
Are we doing wrapping up that? And I wasn't thinking we were gonna do a break for lunch today, just dive straight into it, but if you have food, please, we can, of course. Yeah. I had my lunch, but, so nothing to eat. I don't see anybody else's lunch, I have it, but I'm not gonna talk and eat at the same time. So moving on to some business, the next line of business is approval of the minutes. So hopefully everybody has a copy of that. If you do not, you can say bye with, we have one extra copy. But
I typed them. I don't have to look at them. I don't need to look.
Yeah, right, she did. She wrote them. So,
I'll make a motion to approve then.
great, so, sorry, who was the second? Awesome, great. All right, any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes from, was it August 22nd? Sorry,
Yeah.
August 22nd.
Number 3 should be Hanover Co-op. Not Hamburg.
Oh.
Different in German.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So number 3. All right, we'll make that change. Thank you.
So sorry.
Let me do a spell check.
Typing up, right? You might get.
Sometimes it likes to think that it knows what you.
I know, right?
Yeah, or try to say. All right, and we'll type in the comments. Thanks for helping. All right, I will, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from August 22nd of the SEDS meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Well, I see it, hands up. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes have been approved. All right, just a quick update. I have some great news to share. The first is, and I had forgotten to put this on here because there was a meeting last night of the North Country Council Commission. And if you remember in our August meeting, we approved, or I should say approved, but recommended approval of the amended comprehensive economic development strategy. That went through both the board of directors successfully, and then last night was adopted by the commission. So I have put that on the website, or actually it's in the process of being put on the website, I think while we speak. And then I'll be sending that to EDA as well, to the Economic Development Administration as our formal SEDS. So, and I'll send that to you as well. So I'll email everybody after this with the link of where it can be found. But that'll be our driving document going forward. And well, I wouldn't think they were hugely substantial. I think they're enough that they gave us some good marching orders on how to deal with the manufacturing and commercial industries in our region, which are very, very important, as I underscored to the board last night when I met with them. So, and everyone agreed. So obviously it's an important thing at the heart and soul of our region. All right, and then the other thing is I think to date, and you've probably received numerous emails from me that we're still looking for SEDS priority projects. We have till the 31st for those, and I believe to date we're at 12 projects. So I'm going to start doing a deeper dive on Monday, just to give people the week after my last notice, which there'll be one more on Monday, because that's just how I roll. And just to see where we're missing some projects. I don't think we have any from this part of the Grafton area, for example. We have Lancaster so far, Berlin, I guess COAS-wide childcare project that I forgot the name.
Coast Coalition for
Yes,
Molly
Molly, that Molly submitted. There's something from Whitefield, but it would be good to see like something Plymouth area, for example. So I'm going to take a deep dive, and not that doesn't mean that in November we won't be nudging some folks to potentially put some projects in. But yes.
Have you taken a look at some of the previous project lists, because some of those?
Yes, they'll be added to that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as a group, we really haven't looked at that in a long time.
Correct.
So it probably needs a lot of updating, and stuff is probably going to drop off. And
it's already been updated.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I did a very thorough search, and anything that someone did not get back to me, or that through the grapevine I found out that it kind of went by the wayside. So these will be added to that list, because there are some that are still in progress. Through various stages. So obviously you're in the different stage with the Carroll broadband. And so I don't know if that was going to be submitted for additional funding at some point, or if you need to, but okay. So that was removed. So there'll be projects, there'll be projects that will be removed, because we're trying to keep the list to either planned projects or things that are in motion right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is
But
that
that's a great
updated list of 12 and any that were carried over? Is that public?
It's on the website.
It is.
Yeah, so the most recent one is now on the website. And if you go to about and then the committee, the SEDS committee, that's where you'll find that. This next round of updates for the website, I'm going to try to connect the focus tab on our website with the committees, because some stuff lives under committees like the SEDS committee, and some things lives under the economic development work that we do, but they're really combined in my opinion. So I'm going to do a better job now that I'm a little bit into my tenure here now. And I can now I see the map, in my head of how it all connects. So if you do have any others, I encourage you to either ask the folks that you represent, or any communities that you know. And again, I'll do a bigger nudge, both next week to that email distribution list, but also to see and work with Taylor and our GIS department to map out where we're actually getting some projects. Like the one, like Jason, I think, Hawk Moody, is he still on? He is, asked if the project, the Trails project would be relevant, and it would, because it's in the greater SEDS region, but not within our region.
Right.
So luckily that would be eligible.
Good.
So Jason, if you haven't submitted yet, I didn't see it yet, but.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll follow up.
Yeah, thanks. And it's really not a hard, in my opinion, it's not
It's not
a
a
lot of
heavy-
information. Yeah, I mean, there'll be more coming later, but for now it asks the basic amount of information and, giving some thoughts of what the project is, et cetera. But I think you could probably do it in 15 to 20 minutes, Jason. So. Great, any questions on that? I'm excited about this. This is going to be fun to see some new projects. And some of them have been things that we're already seeing, like NBRC eligible projects that you've probably seen and you've all probably seen, but some of them are new to me. So I'm excited to put them all on one big list. So that brings me, and I want to do this while we have everybody on the phone, if everyone's okay with talking about the December SEDS meeting. So that's when, unfortunately, the fourth Thursday is December 26th. And I can imagine you're all going to want to spend that with your family, or you already even have the day off. So I would love to meet that month if possible, because I would love to bring these projects to you so that we can include all of them in the next annual report, which will be due on December 31st to EDA, as well as in our new 3-year grant application, which is also due by December 31st EDA, so we have a lot of work to do. So are folks willing to bump it up a week to like the 19th?
The third Thursday, the 19th.
Is it the 19th? Yeah. Does that work for people? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I meant to talk about it at the August meeting, but I guess this works just as well. Unless we want to do November, but I feel like this gives us some time to flesh out some of those projects that might be out there that we can add to the SEDS list. And I would definitely send in advance of this list so you can weed through it. So I'd give you probably 2 weeks at least notice on that. So, because I think Terrell and I, between the two of us and also our GIS personnel, will be able to really make some good work in headway in November.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody online opposed to the 19th?
Vito and I have a conflict, but I think we can get that moved.
Okay. Oh, that'd be
It's a
great.
small group. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We appreciate that. Anybody online opposed to the 19th of December, same time, 11 to 1? Okay.
Any thoughts on where you want to do it?
Yes, so I met with June Hammond Rowan a couple months ago. If you don't know her, she was sort of is still the community development director in Plymouth, has been for many years. And she was interested in us meeting in Plymouth, and I am too, because we haven't been to that part in a while. So she suggested reaching out to who's kind of taking over for her right now. I did reach out to him, but I've not heard back from him. So I'm looking for some fun locations.
Well,
I was like, they have space, I know about.
We can fall back on.
Plymouth Enterprise Center, where I'm at Penny Baker. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, okay, you want to do that? Can you check to see if the 19th of December works? Yes. Sweet, all right, and that would work, thank you. I was actually gonna open it up.
Space too.
That's what June had recommended, but I would really like to do it in an academic.
Pardon?
The Pease Library.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what June had recommended, but
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Enterprise Center, because they have a really nice conference.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I would rather do it there.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what from the library, but.
She said the basement, yeah, exactly. She said the basement.
Yeah, it's pretty likely that we're open, but I'll.
Okay. Great. Yeah, and then other ideas are welcome too. I know there's a great space at Plymouth State where the breakouts were for the Econ Forum. If you were there last year, there was, I think it's the Alumni Center.
Yep.
Beautiful space. So I really just wanted to make sure, as I do with all of our meetings now, if there's a planner in the community like we did for Lebanon, to invite them and engage them in it so that they don't find out randomly that we all met in their community and they weren't invited. So it's always nice to, and June's a cool friend, so it was easy.
Fun fact, June used to work for NC.
I love her. She's
Forest Service headquarters is a nice office too in that area. That's just another one. Yeah,
Oh, really?
That's right in Camden. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we may have been meeting some long time ago, but it was.
Well, that
I
could
think
be
we did.
good.
Right?
Yeah, it's open.
Angie, I'm going to Plymouth State on Monday because we're actually having our staff development training there next
Oh,
week.
you are getting
So I can take some pictures for you. Yeah, that's like your welcome.
I love
Great
that
space
space.
for-
Is it in the one that says it community or?
I don't know. There's a lot. We're doing, so we have like 200 people for the training. So
Right, yeah.
We're using multiple spaces at.
Yeah.
you know, but
They have a bigger facility that's like 76 stories high or something like that.
That's a lot.
That's what we want for us.
Okay.
Oh, Boyd, right, Boyd Science Center?
No.
It's the hub.
It's it. Yeah, I know where it is. Yeah, so I couldn't tell you where it's called.
Oh, Merrill, that, I
Merrill.
live in that building.
Oh, that's
Well, because, well, it's new, so they did the bottom floor, it's like a conference.
Yeah,
And then the upper
Yep,
6 floors
that's
are
where it was, yeah.
housing now.
Someone else that was while we were there, like, I used to live here.
Yeah, it's a really cool building. Yeah, great.
So that's the room too, SLA and ONS, that's a big room also.
SLA.
Yeah, and barn thing.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Wait, Holderness? Okay.
Home Life Association.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I was like, why does that sound familiar? Awesome, these are great. So
We were also
not
talking
for-
about the breweries.
Yeah, just different.
And the last chair at the Rotary there on the Plymouth Romney line, they just did a massive expansion. I've not been in there yet since they've expanded, but they just did like triple the size of their space. So I haven't been in there. I mean, that might be a good place in the future too.
I'm sorry.
It's called The Last Chair.
The last.
It's a brewery.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know
I've
where.
been there too.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. Like, I just haven't been in there since they expanded, but they
It sure was.
seriously
Well,
blew
the
up.
last year, that place is cute.
And then there's another one that's been for a little while in Romney. Soul Track is a brewery there right near the Romney Rocks as well. I don't know. That was a restaurant. They probably have room for us to meet too.
Yeah.
That might be
Okay.
a good
Oh,
idea.
that was the old,
The Romney Rocks Bistro.
yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
It's good to see that getting reused, and they're doing a lot of events to talk about
That's
things of
awesome.
the community. They have yoga on Sunday mornings, and they have trail rides and a bunch of stuff. So
What about that place? What happened to the acres that became something?
that turned into, I live right down the road from there.
Okay.
And so D Acres became the Hummingbird Project, which is kind of more like an Airbnb. So kind of more like tiny, like you can come and like rent it out. I don't know exactly how they're running it, but it's now run by the son of the people that did
Oh,
D
okay.
Acres. So it's still in the family, but as talking about Dorchester, Green Woodlands now, mountain biking has brought more people to Dorchester than I've seen in years. And there are people going by my house every weekend with mountain bikes on top.
Yeah.
But it's become a big asset to the town of Dorchester. I think even someone's even done a bike shop up and running during the summer months.
Yeah.
So,
That guy, we tried to get him to come talk to the Plymouth Rotary, he wouldn't do it.
yeah.
Essentially, keep it on so much underbound.
Yeah, I understand it, yeah. But is he a forester, I think?
Well, there's some sort of foundation. that
Yeah.
Oversees the entire project. And
The enterprise tour is great.
Excellent.
There we go.
I'll make sure I change the invite as soon as we're done here. So.
And then we can all go to the brewery after.
Right. Well, since we've already started our share outs, Erin, do you want to go first?
I think the biggest share out is really that Taylor Caswell was instrumental in securing $1.9 million of funding for our club to have early childcare renovations. So that is the very exciting news on the horizon. We're hoping that renovations are going to start in February, March-ish, if things go according to plan. But super exciting. And then I guess the other piece is one of our big efforts this year is just continuing to spread the word about the work that we do. There are so many people locally in the community, even friends of mine that have children that do not know the Boys and Girls Club is in the Stringornis building behind Evergreen. They do not really know about what we're doing. They're like, oh yeah, I can do something with kids, right? So we're just trying to continue to spread the word and share out. So if you know anyone, excuse me, that would be interested in coming to the club and just simply learning about what we do, please send them my way. I would love to reach out to them and just continue sharing about the services that we have in the community.
If I can piggyback too, is just, we are fully childcare licensed through the state of New Hampshire, DHHS. Our commercial kitchen is about to be fully licensed as of next week with a certificate of occupancy. And with this comes funding. State scholarship is extremely important for families. We are one of the, at $10 a week per child for childcare. We couldn't beat that over the last decade. We just raised our rates to $30 per week, and that is per child, which is still extremely low. But we can get these families scholarships rather easily with the eligibility levels being raised recently. So that's important for families to know.
Question, Erin, that lovely chunk of money from the commissioner.
Yes.
Was that ARPA funds?
Yes.
It was probably great timing because they're just, I mean, they're on a very fast track to try to get rid of whatever's left.
Right, yes.
Otherwise, it goes away.
Yes. So it was, we were so eternally grateful, and also shout out to Chuck, who had been talking to me, and that funding didn't work out. Was going to start figuring out ways for us to go other routes in order to figure out the funding. So thank you, Chuck, for always being so mindful of us as well. But it worked out, which is the best. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
So the econ forum was just mentioned, so we have pushed it back up, but November 14th, at Manchester Community College for the next one.
It's out there.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Okay.
Because I registered.
Okay.
I got an email, so it has been.
I didn't.
Oh, well, that's another issue.
Yeah, maybe. My other thing is, I look forward to the December meeting. We do now have a dedicated state program manager for Northern Border Regional Commission. It was one of 3 major roles that I had, and I asked to get us the dedicated staff person. So good that Ian Davis is in that role, which has freed me up at the request of the commissioner to develop a rural economic development strategy. As those of you who know me well, I would not develop a strategy on my own. So I'm developing a roadmap and framework that I will present on the 7th of November to our leadership team, because we'll want to engage all of you and hundreds more people around the state to develop an actual strategy. So, but the roadmap, it's been, the data gathering piece has been really interesting. Just a quick, as an example, in the last 4 years only, there have been 7 different federal disaster declarations in the state of New Hampshire. All but 3 are in the rural counties of New Hampshire. The 3 that are not are the Seacoast, where it had federal declarations around weather events related to flooding in the Seacoast. But 22 of the 25 were in the rural counties of New Hampshire, where we have the least resources at our town levels and all to deal with those. So that's been that was a fascinating discovery that I made in doing some research. Phil Slatton at New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, I was with on Monday of this week, is now reviewing my data and may come back with more recommendations of other data points that are relevant to a strategy for the state. So excited to be able to do that now that we have someone else paying attention to NERC, which was pretty overwhelming.
And he seems to be settling in nicely.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. Yeah,
I met with him.
Great.
Sorry.
Ian Davis is now heading up the Northern Borders Regional Commission activities for DEA.
Great.
Steve offloaded it. He decided that was enough.
Yeah. Other more stuff to do.
He's a great guy and a great addition. And that's because also his father-in-law is a New Hampshire chapter trip.
Oh, yeah.
Or soon to be.
AMC connecting everyone.
It's the common denominator.
I always try to find.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no updates for the good of the order, but I am staying with the Congresswoman through the end of her term. So I'll be here through the end of the year. If there's anything you need, I have cards with me, and I'd be happy to connect with you. Please have a conversation. I don't know what's happening next for me or the office, so.
Will there be a party at some point for her?
Yeah, I'm not sure in the details. I know something is kind of in the works in the North Country, so stay tuned.
Cool. It's important to thank her.
It absolutely is. Thank you.
Hi, I reviewed the minutes from the last meeting, and my updates are very similar, but I know not everybody was there, so just a reminder that we're running the micro enterprise program covering all of Grafton County. We've got a few other partners in the county that also support small businesses with this program. We all do it a little bit differently though, so we can always use more recommendations or referrals for businesses that we can help. It's for those businesses that have 5 or fewer employees and are the owner is low to moderate income, which, you know, I can figure that out with them. And if we can't help them with micro enterprise, we can probably help them with something else. So we're able to offer direct grants for equipment through that program, as well as other supports like access to technical assistance like marketing, building out a simple website, certain materials, coming up with a social media marketing plan, working with a lawyer. We're going to cover a bill that somebody of a business that was working with a trademarking lawyer, accountant. We helped a business owner who is bilingual but preferred to work on her taxes with somebody who spoke Spanish. We were able to cover that time with that accountant. So so just a number of things that we're able to help folks with. So, you know, happy to talk to any businesses that folks know of. And then secondly, we did get extended, I think I didn't know this at the last meeting, that we did get an extension for the family child care work that we've been doing. Yeah, which is great. It's going to go through September of next year. And we did get additional funding as well, which is great. So that is to help family child care businesses with, so I'm doing the outreach to them, and we're actually internally doing the business coaching. We've got somebody on staff who specifically knows how to coach family child care businesses, which is a very different kind of business coaching than most of the other businesses that we work with. And then we also are able, we've been learning a lot about how this all works, how family child care works in the state. So we've got a lot of good resources to get any provider or potential provider connected with other resources for the child care quality side of things as well. So those are 2 big programmatic efforts. And then I know Anne would like me to mention that she is continuing conversations about ADU financing, as that appears to be kind of like the sticky wicket of getting ADUs into, out into the community. So accessory dwelling units. Sorry. Yeah, keep the jargon out there. Or apartments on your land. So that's an ongoing conversation. It's a complicated one. It's going to be a long one, but she continues to learn more about that topic.
Well, and it's going to be a lot different from what an RTC does, because it would be providing funding to typically private individual,
right,
as opposed to a business.
Which is different. Yeah. So
when you do the underwriting for something like that, it's kind of a whole different animal.
Yeah. So the very basic sketch of the way it would look at this point is that an RDC would have a revolving loan fund that would have enough funding for one ADU. I mean, this is like to start, where it would be pre-approved with the town, it would be pre-approved with the bank. And the RDC would manage the construction, and then as soon as there's occupancy, then the bank would refinance it. So they would take it over once we'd take on the risky part of the construction, and then once it's occupied, it gets refinanced, and then we're not managing it beyond that. We get the money back, we do it again. Yeah, and so that's
Yeah, and Anne's been part of our statewide ADU discussions, as has Renee, of course, and Vital Communities, to share out what we're doing in each of the regions, because it is a little different. So like Monadnock region is totally all in on the design element. And so what does that look like to create some designs that could be pre-approved? And then the Seacoast region is working on financing too. In Dover, they actually have Service Credit Union and 4 other banks who have created specific ADU financing mechanisms. So one's just for Dover, the other 3 banks are throughout their service stations, service reach, if you will. So we're all working on our own little kind of things, in addition to us working on a training for that. But it's all for the better good, so that we're not kind of doing these things in silos, because we would love to learn on that method. I'm sure other RDCs would too, if that is a good model. And then banks should be all talking to each other now about what that looks like, because in Hanover, they're having no success in it, but in Dover, it's like 5 banks now.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
so
we still need that. We need the revolving loan fund. So we don't have that yet.
Yeah, sure, but it's still a cool model. So
yeah.
How much you're looking to get for that?
Forward. Well, I think other folks here know more about the actual cost, but I think 200,000 is around what they're looking.
That's a good amount to have in that cushion, because a lot might be less, but some might push that boundary depending on how much work they have to do. If they're building a brand new garage with an overhead apartment and all that, I'm sure that might be more expensive. But if you're just like chopping a house in half and building a wall, not nearly as expensive.
Right. I think Lebanon is
Anywhere.
saying that the average right now is 40 or 50, which is and that's for
And that's inclusive of
300 to 450.
broadly defined.
Wow.
A lot of so some towns require that they be attached somehow.
Right, well, the state law allows them by right, as part of the primary structure, but towns can also then allow for detached, which then becomes it's a bigger project, it's probably more money.
And one thing that that I think Anne already knew this, but in a conversation earlier today, understood that it's actually the septic systems you don't require any further permitting in New Hampshire. The state is allowing folks to have an ADU and add it on to their current septic system. They are required though to have a plan for if their septic system fails, to have it replaced with something that would have more capacity. So that would have to be on file. So but then also heard that actually it's very rare that most septic systems are actually built with like slightly more capacity than what they're on paper for. So it's very rare that they do fail.
I thought that someone building an ADU on their property had to be able to show that the current septic system
I do too.
can handle it.
It's interesting.
I thought that was in the state law.
No, that's interesting. Wow, that's my screw face.
Because the towns that I do planning work with, it's built right into the ordinance that's one of the requirements is that they have to prove that the septic can handle it. And if they can't, then a new system has to be built.
Well, what would the proof be? I think everything that I've seen is that if they have a septic system that is built for their current number of bedrooms, they do not need to. So if they have a 3-bedroom home, it's a 3-bedroom septic system. They don't need to get it expanded to be a 4-bedroom. Or a 5-bedroom if they're building it 2 bedrooms.
That's confusion around that may be leading to some.
Yeah, so maybe that's something to.
Okay.
That's gonna be in our training as well, and that's what I understood as well, was that they had to show that they had current capacity and also have a plan in place, like Michelle's saying, for any, excess, which is what's just, the problem is, and that becomes a financial burden on the community, from the homeowner as well, to hire someone with that expertise, because they're not gonna do it themselves. Like, they have to hire someone who knows septic systems.
Well, I'll follow up on that stuff on my area. I've heard it in a few different meetings, so but.
I'm gonna go back and review.
Yeah.
The RSA.
I have to let Noah send if that's helpful, because this is part of the training that I'm doing, is the septic piece, because it's such a sticky wicket. Yeah, great. Any chance that there'll be any update for a December meeting that you would like to give, like around the work in the childcare realm, if you want to do a presentation? Or do you think it's a little too soon?
Let me think about that.
Okay, yeah, just like we're there.
Yep.
We don't have, except for the sense priority, which I think is a good thing, but just want to make sure that, yeah, also another educational opportunity. Sure. Okay, no pressure. Awesome, Sandy, or?
No, good.
Okay, I figured out.
Thank you.
Yeah, real quick from us at FBC Lebanon. Kind of on that same note of housing, we are in the process of just like North Country Council and the other RPCs around the state. We are doing our regional plan this year, so we are in the middle of our public input with our surveys and all that sort of thing. And this early results from our surveys, as well as anecdotal evidence from our planners going to planning board meetings and such, we're finding that it's very difficult. Some towns just don't want more housing. Like, they are just very upfront about it. They are in their planning board meetings saying, like, we need to keep this exactly like this is. I'm trying not to get stuff built. They are very adamant about it's not our problem. I've heard in planning board meetings, somebody say, like, it's not our problem that they're adding so many jobs in Lebanon they can't fill. Let them deal with it, even though you're 20 minutes down the highway. So that's the issue we're running into. Is that we're making good headway with things like our HOP grants and things like that. But it's just something we're running into, and so it's just a challenge. And yeah, that's all.
I told Alan he could go next, since if you're all set.
Yeah, I'm all set. Yeah.
Yeah, he has to jump, so I wanted to make sure he had.
Sorry, just wanted to, give some quick insight. Thank you again for a great meeting. Just coming up on November 7th, we're going to be hosting a new farmers school meeting. This is being coordinated with Jesse Wright, the extension field specialist on agriculture and business management out of UNH. So it's going to be a long-going course for these new farmers. And they'll be visiting Edgewater Farm. Many of you know Edgewater and the Sprague family and all they've done. They're a big supplier to stores like our cooperatives. And then those new farmer students will be coming to the co-op and meeting with our merchandisers, where we give them a deep dive on what merchandisers look for. It's not necessarily to bring them on immediately, but it's really to help them understand and define what retail success looks like from new farmers, and share whatever insights we have on the buying process. So that's coming up. And, the agricultural impact on the state is something that we always have to hang on to. And kudos to UNH for driving this.
Great, Alan, thanks.
Thanks.
I don't have anything for report on North Country Council because I don't. Well, just the work in Carroll County on Carroll County broadband, but that's moving along very nicely. I mean, there's a lot of money coming into the state, a lot of federal money, and fortunately, the group over there has positioned themselves well in working with a number of the primary service providers who build out internet networks over there, and Consolidated being one, and a couple others. co-op actually provides some service over there. Anyway, so those groups are getting plenty of money and they're lighting up, a lot of the residents and businesses over there. So they have also created, I think I probably mentioned this at another meeting, but they were the first group to actually form a communications district so that if for some reason this money didn't happen the way it has happened, they would have been able to set up infrastructure and management of a network and do it themselves, basically. But it's looking like they won't have to actually do that because of all the money that's come in and the activity that's going on. So anyway, so that's happening.
What's the name of the group?
It's the Carroll County Communications District. Wearing my COAS Economic Development Corp hat, just to let you know that the executive board has done a couple of initial screening interviews on a replacement candidate for the executive director. I believe 2 candidates will be brought before the full board within the next month for some interviews. But the position is still open. If you know of anyone who's interested, it's still time to get in and get your name in the hat. It's advertised as open until filled. So that's it for me.
As far as the Charitable Foundation is concerned, we have the usual time of the year activities going on. Donor engagement is ramping up for end of the year. Our community grants program is winding down. And the Upper Connecticut River Mitigation and Enhancement Fund project will be opening up, I think, in a couple of weeks. This could very well be the last year for MEF, as you guys probably have heard me say before. That program funds things like dam removal and land acquisition in the Connecticut River watershed. And if, in fact, the fund sunsets this year, it depends on the number of applications we get, it will be the culmination of close to 25 years of work in the region that emerged from the relicensing of 15 Mile Falls Dam. So that, and there'll be, a pretty robust kind of communications and outcome sharing around that work that is all TBD in the format it will take. But the interesting thing about it is it will celebrate the nonprofits, the organizations, the partners that have done the work, as well as highlight lessons learned from that particular program as a policy tool. So that's something that maybe will come to pass this year. We're excited about. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Grace? All right, so we are, and thanks to Stephanie for some guidance around our regional plan, but we are relaunching the survey after the election. We had a great response from Carroll County, but didn't see the response we were looking for from COAS and Grafton. So we're hoping through our partners that we can get that out. So I did leave some flyers with Aaron, so thanks to Aaron for offering. So if you have a public place, I don't know how many folks come in and out of your space, if you could put some out, but we are looking to diversify the response from COAS and Grafton to make sure that it is equal. Just to give you an idea, it was like about 70% from Carroll. And it was great to have a successful event that brought us those responses, but we do want to make sure it's geographically dispersed, and especially with our bigger communities like Berlin and Littleton, where we saw really small responses. So I think a lot of noise over the summer, especially with the elections. So thank you again, Stephanie. That was a great idea that people can still take it. It is open, but we're hoping to do a bigger launch through our communities and handing out these packets which has a sign and a little flyer, basically with a QR code that people can take the survey with. So, and then Taylor and I have talked about doing some coffee hours, potentially going to bars, places that we both like to go. The libraries, our library, our workplace, to have these available and talk through, where we can get the younger voices, especially, but voices just nonetheless. So especially families, but families and younger people. Yeah, is what we're looking for. But obviously, anybody in those 2 counties is who we're looking for too. And then the second one was, I wanted to build on what you were talking about, so I waited a little bit. So I think I mentioned at the last meeting that we had an employer assisted housing grant from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. And this was to look, we had 4 projects. One of them was the Berlin project. And all of them are kind of in a state of either being shifted to a new project or in standstill, because there's a lot, the Berlin one specifically is, there's a lot of negotiation. So our role as North Country Council is to engage stakeholders in those projects. So I talked to a head, and we're going to rebrand this project to talk more about what it looks like to work with employers on being that wraparound service around housing. Like, what does it look like for the hospital, for example, to help an employee stay where they are? What are the resources that they could provide them, even just to say, here, call ahead, or here, call so-and-so. But what does that look like for them to be kind of the, to play the middleman and be, again, like kind of like Health Trust, if anyone is in a Health Trust. They have the EAH or the EAP, the Employee Assisted Providers. So what does that look like? And so doing basically little road shows around the region with Chambers of Commerce, with AMC, with North Country, with you and your staff, and with the HR directors specifically. So we're going to regroup and think about that, because we want our services to be utilized as well as possible as conveners and people who are resource managers, but obviously we're not the be all end all. And so this is our way to kind of be, again, the middleman and figure out how employers can actually be the ones to help with this, instead of it being that the employee always has to figure this out. And that's for new employees too, to your point about, recruitment, here we can help you find housing. Here's a way to get first-time home buyers, down payment assistance. But that, I feel like, and I'm not saying that there are employers out there who do this, but doing a better job of filling in those gaps for them so that they don't have to do that research. So I'm excited to relaunch this program in a big way, because I felt like I was being underutilized. Honestly, all these projects are on standstill, and like, we got this money, it's work, let's figure it out. So this is our way of kind of regrouping on it. It's just like, more on that soon. Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. I will say though, I really liked your presentation, and it's really come full circle for me, because like in 2013, 2014 in middle school, like the AMC was one of those groups who like brought our like hiking club like up the mountain, and we get to stay in the hut. So that's like why I kind of chose my college major, environmental policy, because I really loved the outdoors, and the AMC was really like pertinent to me getting into the field. Yeah, it's very cool.
There you go, Chris, poster child.
Yeah.
For a lot of things.
Yeah.
Although for those of us who remember not being in middle school.
The last thing I'll mention, and I was going to send another reminder, is that our webinar for this month was rescheduled from October 2nd to October 31st to accommodate Jerry King's schedule. And I wish Ellen would have been here to see that. Jerry King is a PhD in sociology and has done a lot of work in facilitation, but has most recently started to dive into multi-generational spaces and how an aging workforce is key to be able to bring back into or to accommodate. And we talked about that at our last meeting, obviously, but we're really taking a deep dive through Jerry, who, like I said, she's a sociologist, but she is great at facilitation and has done a lot of research on this. So Taylor did a lot of research on the background numbers, especially in the North Country, who's been responding to our survey about, was it 40% of the respondents are still in the workforce?
Oh yeah, they were
over age
55. Yeah, they're over age 55, and they still, and like 11% of those had two jobs.
So we're definitely seeing the burden that they're facing themselves, but also that employers, how do we accommodate that, and what does it look like, both as an employer or employee, as a fellow employee? So Jerry's going to take a deep dive and do some great conversation on that. And I believe last time I checked, we're like upwards of like 20 people, which is big for us.
Like if I have like an 8-person turnout, I'm like winning that day.
That's a good day.
Yeah, and I saw 13 and I was like, whoa, I didn't how you learned out, yeah.
I thought it was October 30th.
30. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's October 30th. Yes, it's a Wednesday. I'm not excited.
You're all excited about Halloween.
Yeah, yep.
Can you include that in the report after this meeting, please?
Yeah.
Just to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
If you're on the road.
Yeah.
And just to tie that together, yesterday afternoon, Campus Compact had a webinar with someone from Carsey School. And he had very detailed charts, graphs on the by 10-year increments of the workforce throughout the state. And I hadn't seen the 10-year thing broken out in that way before, so I'm going to put that into my framework. But he asked us not to share the slides, although Aaron at Campus Compact did share them with me. But the speaker, Ken Johnson, I believe was his name, did share that there are briefs on the Carsey School website where he pulled the different data from.
Okay.
So that's publicly available, but I don't know. Sharing the slide deck with you.
Oh, I totally understand. But yeah, if there's something available, we can definitely pull that and make sure we source it.
Fiscal Policy Institute also has a lot of kind of graphs on those demographics, and we just saw it in a presentation by one of their staff on this topic. So it was
interesting to
interesting.
see it at a more micro level than county, which I've been dealing with. To actually see pockets, within counties that are, really aging, like what we do, succession.
Yeah. Which is having these feelings about housing. It's like, who's gonna live here to take care of you?
Every person.
I just want this to be our worst hybrid.
I'm 46 and every person's around older than me. It's like, I don't know what.
I just found a picture. That very nice sort of historical.
First thing you-
Yeah.
Sure.
That's why you get up to.
Yeah, it's nuts to hear.
And as you're convening, I just want to personally thank you and everyone for coordinating this. I think you know, I feel like I missed by a part of, this is a big part, more of a part. I have to run too, but Erin, I would love to see if you guys do some tours so you can go back and share out what you get today.
I think I was the teacher brain experience in 2013. So that's the teacher in my former life.
I have some work in our